All right, Izzy Hackney, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey, people at King, many people still they remember you when you were swimming, and many more now remember you from when you were volunteering, coaching, and for us just to kind of connect, and for just the opportunity to kind of let people catch up with you and hear about what it is that you're doing. I think it's really, really fun. And one of the goals of these talks is to connect people like yourself to the current age group swimmers. They see you and they see other collegiate athletes come back from time to time, and they think it's so cool that you got your school cap on, or you got your school suit on, and I think that this opportunity, just like it was for Jewel maybe like a month back, and with Liam and Everett recently, it's just kind of it's kind of refreshing to talk to somebody and to see what it is that they've learned along the way. So how about we just kind of start with, like, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. I think this little extended break for COVID has been really refreshing, honestly, to take a break from swimming, and it gives me an opportunity to really reevaluate why I swim in the first place. And I think it has been good to focus more on school studies and appreciate family time. But
yeah, I'm really happy that you said that, it's giving you a moment to kind of step back, because I don't think anybody's really said that so far. One thing, whether we like it or not, we're reflecting, why it is that we do things, and are we going in the direction that we want to be going in? And could you kind of tell us a little bit about what it is that you realize, regarding swimming, or even life in general?
you mean right now during this time, or just okay?
Yeah, right now.
Well,
If
I
it's
think
something personal, that is, of course,
Yeah. So over the past couple of years, my first 2 years in college swimming, I faced a lot of adversity, probably more than anyone does in their first 2 years of swimming. And so for me, sitting here in the summer, halfway between starting and ending college, getting to reflect on these past couple years and really make a hard decision on whether to continue that or not, and if I choose to continue, why am I doing that? For me, I'm really appreciative of this time. And I think it has made me realize that if I do get to swim this next fall, it will be because I truly enjoy the sport, and not because, not for any reason other than that. It will be purely for enjoyment, and because I enjoy going to practice every single day.
Growing up, Izzy, it's kind of like I kind of feel like, out of your little talk right now, that there was a time when you obviously didn't enjoy it, and hearing you say that you're going to go back, it'll be because you truly do enjoy it. What is it that you feel like took that love of that love of swimming away? Was it your parents that kind of pushed you into it from the start and kind of kept you there? Like, what is it?
No, actually, my parents did a really great job of stepping away from swimming. They were never really involved in the sport with me, and I appreciate that to this day. I appreciate that they let me be independent in that decision and how I chose to go about that sport. For me, the love dissipated because I was always that person who I would show up to practice every single day, work my tail off, and do really, really, really well in practices. But then I'd go to meets and the races just weren't there. I would look up at the scoreboard and see times that I knew in my heart I had trained better than that for. And that happened year after year after year. I would pace times in practice and beat my teammates in practices that were going so much faster than me. My pace times were crazy fast, but my meet times were awful. I never had time standards that I never really got the time standards that I shot for. And for me, just showing up year after year after year and working so hard and training at a certain level, but never reaching it in meets was really disappointing. And that is something that I have had to get over.
Would you call it like a plateau, or was it like were you just mentally blocking yourself in some way? I mean, you don't need to tell us, but like, do you think it, you know, in reflecting, like, was it something that was keeping you down?
Yeah, for me, I think it was completely mental. I would show up to meets and I would have performance anxiety. I would kind of count myself out before I even got up on the blocks. And to this day, I still do that. It's a work in progress. I've gotten a lot better, but for me, I think it was completely mental.
Yeah. You know, people, Izzy, they think that, you know, they think that we're going to practice every day just to get better at swimming. You know, I would argue that we're going to practice every day, of course, to get better, but in the process of getting better, we're learning something about ourselves that we never knew. And more often than not, there are things inside of us that are keeping us down. And, you know, many times I've told people, like, it's okay to go ask for help. And I'm not saying that, you know, this was similar to you. Maybe you didn't need to see a psychologist, but you know, it's interesting that, you know, you say this. You know, you're obviously studying biology and criminal justice. You know, before this talk, you said you wanted to, you know, you had an internship coming up. Would you tell us about that?
Yes. So coming in the fall, I'm hoping, well, I'm at the end of the interview process, but I'm very hopeful about it. That I will be working with the Spokane Police Department, specifically in their forensics unit. Mm-hmm. So that will be helping them take photographs of crime scenes and process fingerprints. The whole.
Sounds kind of cool, but probably more gruesome than we could even ever imagine. You know, going into forensics, wouldn't you say that you've got to be very detail oriented?
Actually, I feel like I'm really good at seeing the big picture of things.
You think you saw the big picture of your journey through swimming and what it all meant, kind of struggling as much as you did?
In the moment, it's really hard to see those things, but now looking back, I find it really easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy. You know, before we kind of got into this, you know, you said that you're going to go do that internship, and I told you that I almost became a cop. Few people know, but Tori Head knows. I had 2 classes with Aaron Rodgers, and one of them was in our police class. You know, knowing your rights, and actually we did our final exam inside the Berkeley Police Department in the Armory. I think that was their hook to try to get people to join the force, and I almost did. But yeah, you know, I was suffering a back injury, and I almost decided, hey, I'm going to quit swimming and go into the force. So that is pretty cool. What is it about, you know, that field that specifically interests you? And could you kind of tie that to, or relate that to swimming in any way?
Actually, yes. So I think one thing I really liked about King was their reputation for academic excellence. And at least in my experience, I was always around coaches and peers that supported me in succeeding as a whole person, and that included academics. And so my coaches supported me in a lot of the volunteer experience that I wanted to pursue. So for 3 or 4 years, I volunteered for the Auburn Valley Humane Society in their vet services department. And I continued that up until I went to college. And I loved animals, and I thought that I wanted to become a veterinarian. And so actually when I entered college, I was pre-vet. So I was majoring in biology on the pre-vet track. And in Spokane, I shadowed multiple animal hospitals and doctors there. But I think I came to the realization that the clinic I wasn't cut out for that. I really liked making farm calls with these vets, but I just couldn't really see myself going to school for that long just to be in a clinic all day. It wasn't really enjoyable, but I loved animals and I wanted to do something with that. And so police dogs was immediately my second thought. And so I kept the biology route, but I added criminal justice. And from there on, that has been my goal, is to somehow work with police dogs. And so my dream job and my career goal right now is to be in a forensics unit, but more specifically a canine forensic unit.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't feel like I knew what I wanted to do until I was like 30. No, I get it. I get it. Hey, so, kind of like, let's roll this back and kind of talk a little bit about, your King days. Unfortunately for you and many, you were with the club at a time when, there were so many changes in coaches, and that's something which many of the senior athletes still in some way, they still have that at the back of their minds. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into swimming and what is it that you loved most, and if there was something that you really learned and embraced while you were just a teenager swimming?
Yeah, so I started swimming when I was probably 3 or 4 on a summer league team.
Which one?
It was in Tacoma. It was called Oakbrook Swim and Tennis Club.
Yeah.
And then when I was about 6 or 7, we moved to Gig Harbor, and I joined the YMCA team. So from the time I was 6 to 10, I was on a YMCA team, year-round still, but not as competitive as club. And then when I was 11, my family moved to Federal Way, and I tried out for King. I was put in what was then known as age group, and my first coach ever was Doug. And then when I was 13, I moved from Doug's age group to his regional group. And then at 14, I was moved into the senior group. And at 15, I moved into the national group. So, and then at 17, of course, I started my college swimming career.
Yeah. 17, that it feels so young, but there are plenty of people that actually go to school or college before they're 18.
Yeah, I skipped a grade in high school. So
was that something you had to pass out of, or you just had so many units that you were able to move forward?
I had enough credits.
Yeah. Okay. Units, credits. Yeah. So Whitworth, I mean, like how did you choose that school? I mean, was it because of its medical background? From what I understand, it's strong in the pre-med, in the medical field.
So that's true. That's not the reason why I picked Whitworth. When I started looking at colleges when I was 15, I was immediately drawn to East Coast schools. My top school, I would have said at that time, was Brown. But a couple of the seniors at King at the time, Savannah Delzer and Owen Lempert, had chosen Whitworth. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a trip there. And I fell in love with it, the campus, and just the school's mission in general. I knew I was looking for a small school. I knew I was looking for a school that had small class sizes. I knew I wanted a school where I had the option to swim. And if so, I wanted to have a good connection with the team and the coach. I wanted a school that was not in Seattle. I wanted to be at least somewhat away from home for a little bit of time. And I think Whitworth for me was that small school atmosphere I was looking for. They had the small class sizes. I did really fall in love with Spokane. It reminded me a lot of the East Coast environment.
Mhm.
It was far enough away from where I lived, but close enough that it wasn't going to be a drastic lifestyle change.
You could always go home over the weekend. I mean, it'd
Yeah,
be a drive, but you could do it.
yeah, exactly. And then on my recruiting trip, I really loved the team atmosphere. In my conversation with the coach, he made it very clear that he would do his best to accommodate me, and I really connected with that. And so I think Whitworth, just immediately, it was everything I was looking for.
Yeah. So when you finally got to school, was it everything you expected to be, or was it a little different? Anything that disappointed you? Those listening, the recruiting process is often confusing, just because a lot of programs, they're doing their best to get people to come, and they're not entirely forthcoming about some situations. Was it the team that you kind of fell in love with at the same time? I mean, you said you connected with the coach, you loved the school, but was it the team that kind of drew you in? What was it about the team that really?
So the part about the team that drew me in was, at least on my recruiting trip, it really did feel like a family.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't a party scene at all. Whitworth is not a party school, and I really wanted a school that was away from the party scene. I did not want that. I wanted to focus on academics. The culture was what I was looking for. To answer your question, when I got there, no, it was not at all what I had expected.
Good or
I think it was a lot like you said. When you're getting recruited, they put their best foot forward. It's not always completely 100% realistic.
right?
It was not what I had expected at all.
You're gonna have to give us some information.
Yeah, not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah.
But definitely not what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I made the mistake of not actually going in and watching a practice. When I got there and actually started training with the team, that was completely different than just going on one recruiting trip, because how they interact with each other outside of a training program is just so different than what it's going to be like day to day when you show up in the morning and every single afternoon.
Yeah. Division II and Division III schools, there's some very, very competitive programs. There are teams. I would always sooner recommend that someone look at a D2 or a D3 school if they really want that swimming experience, because there are places that truly offer it. It's just saying that you went D1. It could be a nightmare if it's the wrong team. If the team doesn't want what you want, and could you, considering that it is a D3 school, do you feel that the team is truly a team? Do you feel like there is chemistry there? What are their policies about missing workout, and could you kind of like parallel how your college experience is different than club, or from what you remember club to be?
Yes. So my experience in college, that's a tough question. It's a lot different than club, because at least on the D3 level at Whitworth, they're pulling in athletes from all walks of swimming life.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kids who have really only ever done high school, but they have really good times, and they're just not used to that type of competitive training. And then there's people like me who have swam club basically their entire life, and they have trained with people who have qualified for nationals, and I'm used to that type of intense training. And so you have people that are getting funneled into a D3 program from all different walks of life. And so you have a bunch of people in a pool trying to train, but not all of them are used to the type of work it takes to, get to the end of season meet and compete at the level that your coach wants you to. And so in that respect, it's a lot different. Whereas club swimming, you're all brought up through levels together. College swimming, you're funneled in from different areas into one little team.
Yeah, I could totally imagine how that could be frustrating. We, to a much smaller degree. I don't really think that we have that issue per se, but yeah, there are people with less and more experience. And I think what's important is the buy-in, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't need to be the most talented, but you need to be there for each other. Do you feel like you have that at Whitworth?
Yes, I think we all support each other really well, and we are truly a family.
Yeah. So,
and like commenting on what you said about buying in, I think that was huge. My coach at Whitworth, Steve, you don't really get to have a say in how you train. He likes to train a very specific way. And like I said, people come from different walks of life, and you may not be used to the type of training he offers. And in my case, I was not prepared for that type of training whatsoever. And for me, that freshman year, it was all about buying into it. It was really hard, but you had to buy into his way of training.
Was it like distance kind of work?
Yes, it was very distance oriented.
Yeah. Because having a background with the former coaches that you had, they are the opposite end of that spectrum. And I could see how that could be tough.
Yeah.
I love a good, story on adversity. And I'm sorry that, that you had some trouble. I do remember last year, I think it was your hip. That was problematic. With us, you were swimming a lot with the buoy.
Yes.
That was pretty cool to see, you kicking butt with the buoy on when others were swimming. Would you tell us about, that adversity with the injury and you already told us about, the mental difficulty of training and not improving, but yeah. Could you kind of elaborate on your troubles so far and how you kind of got over it?
Yes. So my freshman year, like I had stated earlier, this new coach, Steve, he's very distance oriented, and I was not used to that. And so about halfway through the season, I think it was just overtraining, 10 grand a day, something I wasn't necessarily used to, coupled with my natural bone structure. I developed not only a labral tear in my hip, but also hip impingement. And so just one day randomly in practice, it was excruciatingly painful. I was just crying in the middle of the pool. And then I went to our athletic trainers and I did physical therapy for a couple months in the middle of the season, coupled alongside our normal practices. I could only pull for about most of the season after that, but nothing really helped. I competed at my first conference championships with a labral tear. And then I continued physical therapy. I got images done, and that's when they confirmed that I had the labral tear. And I could have chose not to go through with surgery, but I did. I think I did that because I wanted to ensure that later down the line, my health wasn't going to be compromised, because I put swimming before, my long-term health. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to swim my sophomore year, because that type of surgery has about a 10-month to a year full recovery. But I actually went my sophomore year and I competed the whole year. I didn't end up swimming a couple of the first dual meets, but I swam again at conference championships. I didn't do quite as well as my first year, but yeah.
But
I
you were
also,
in rehab for all this time before that, so yeah.
what?
I mean, you're rehabilitating that hip all up until then, so it's understandable that you were out of the water for some time and that it would take a little bit of time to kind of get back to it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But I don't think it was necessarily the surgery that took me for such a roller coaster ride of this past year. After I got surgery, I jumped in the water really fast. I got in, I want to say just a couple weeks after I got my stitches out. Like, the holes in my leg weren't even closed up yet, and I was in the water pulling.
Yeah.
I definitely overworked myself way too early, and that was not on my coaches. My coaches did not push me at all. That was on my own. Like, I made that decision on my own, and I think I definitely did push it a little bit too quickly. I don't think I gave my body enough time to really rest. And so I was struggling with this yo-yo of, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. Oh, I really want to push myself for the whole season. And that really took a toll on me. I ended up in winter training being just really worn down and hurt. And then right after winter training, I went to the ER for pain in my jaw, which was super unrelated. And I ended up having to get all my wisdom teeth out and part of my lower jaw taken out from infection a month out of our conference championships. I got in the water 3 days after I got my wisdom teeth taken out. And I continued to train twice a day. I could only really eat like yogurt and ice cream and like applesauce and stuff. And so that took a pretty big toll on my body as well.
You know, guys, and Izzy, you know, during this time with COVID and us being out of the water, I think we all really just kind of want to get in and swim. With your story, what is it that you know that took you back in the pool? Was it missing swimming, or was it the fear of missing out or not being with your friends and your team? Like, what was it that really, you know, that really got you to get in and work so hard when you probably all along knew that it was you know, against your better judgment? I mean, I swam probably a little sooner than I should have after back surgery, so I get you, but why did you get in?
I think it's kind of just how my parents raised me. If I'm going to do something, you know, give your all to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I tend to take that to the extreme sometimes and be extremely stubborn in my commitment to things, even when it isn't necessarily in my best interest. And so I think it's just who I am. You know, I feel like I have to give 120% to everything I do. And I kind of have the mindset where if I'm not giving 100% to everything I do, why do it?
Izzy, do you have any idea what kind of impact you coming to practice and swimming through all that pain had done to your teammates at Whitworth? I mean, I would have like, what do you think that did for them?
I think
I'll tell you what it did for me, but I would like to hear what, you know, what do you think? How do you think your teammates looked at that?
I think, and I know this because I've had a lot of people come up to me and tell me this, that it is really inspirational to them. And I appreciate that because I feel like I am contributing to the team, even if I'm unable to score points of dual meets or those times when I did have to sit out of meets. I felt like just being there was enough, you know. And that is one thing that being on a college team really shows you, is that you can contribute to a team in so many ways beyond just scoring points or what time you go. Like, you are so valuable in so many ways that you can't even comprehend.
You know, I love that. That is absolutely true. And like I said to you, you know, the senior group has its goals, but again, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's the buy-in and what is it that you bring to the table. And my gosh, if I was lucky enough to have someone like you, you know, in my team and throughout this pain, just to see them come in every single day and contribute. It doesn't matter how. You don't need to lead a lane. You don't need to win. You don't need to score points, but to contribute, if at least the smile, it makes someone's day. So I just, oh man, I respect that. And that is so cool. I'm glad that you recognize that. Good, good. Hey, you know, like I like to kind of just keep this real freelance. You know, Sierra had a question about your college selection. Would you ask your question, Sierra?
Hey, Izzy.
Hey.
What other schools did you consider, and did you look at Division I schools? And if so, what made you ultimately choose Division III?
Yes. So the one D1 school that I was extremely serious about was Brown. I did have some interactions with their coach, but for me, I was going to be pretty low on their roster in terms of where I stood with their team. It would have been totally possible. I definitely would not have gotten a scholarship, but I could have swam for them. I ultimately chose D3 because, I don't know, the idea of even, the thought of even having money attached to my athletic performance was just kind of unsettling. I don't know, I didn't want that type of pressure. Also, I really prioritize a small school environment, and Brown is relatively pretty small, but I wanted even smaller, and the only way that you're really going to get that is Division III. And so that's why I ultimately ended up choosing Whitworth.
That's totally fair. Yeah, you know, on the other spectrum of it, like I went to a school where I was one of 300 people inside of a lecture hall, you know, and professors don't know you. How big are your classes?
The class I am in right now has 7 people. And so it's really nice that you get to know them on a personal level. I'd say my average class size this past year was about 10 to 12.
Wow.
So it has been really, really nice.
Yeah. So in this D3 experience, is attendance mandatory? I mean, like how you know, how do they I mean, you know, with morning workouts and your academics, and you know, they obviously don't offer scholarship money, an athletic scholarship. How is it that what is the goal of Whitworth? What is it that gets you guys to the pool and drives you every day? What's the team goal?
So that requires some sort of, well, a lot of personal accountability. We do have captains, and we set our own personal goals for the season. Steve, as a coach, makes it very clear that practices are completely mandatory unless you have a really, really, really good reason. That means that you either have a fever and are very, very sick, or you have some sort of injury going on, or have an immediate academic situation or prior commitment. There are certain cases where he will modify the amount of days or practices you have to go in a week according to what you can handle. For example, some of our more sprint-oriented guys sometimes won't go to a few of the morning practices. They'll take the extra time off. But yeah, everything is 100% mandatory. And if you miss it, you run the risk of getting pulled out of dual meets.
Right. And that's disappointing to the team. You know, you're not able to contribute. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about, you know, just swimming and what is it that you love about this sport? You know, I would like to think that you're going to swim for the rest of your life. in a master's capacity or just like a rec capacity. Before we started this meeting, you said that you were gonna hopefully work at Marine Hills if they're doing summer league this summer. Now that you're in Olympia, I mean, that would be a commute. Why? Like, what does Marine Hills mean to you, or swimming in general? I mean, I know that it's multifaceted, but it's a lot.
Well, I think Marine Hills as like an employer I've built a relationship with them, and I value that relationship above a commute that I would have to make. I've made a commitment to that, and just because my parents decided to move doesn't mean I'm not going to honor that. Like, I have a car, I am able to drive, I have that privilege. I am going to honor this relationship with them and keep doing that. Swimming wise, I think, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy just staying active, and swimming is just one of those outlets to stay active. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily.
It's a hard question. I see that you're struggling just a little bit, but I think when you love something, you don't need to have a reason. You just, for me, I go swimming when I need to have a conversation with myself and see whatever it is that I need to decide on. But when I was younger, I would go swimming because it was my creative outlet. Like, I love to jump up and down in the pool, and I like to throw boards, and it was just fun for me. And then I just love it for a lot of different reasons. And I just kind of wondered, why do you love swimming?
Well, I think after college, if I ever went back to swimming as a sport, it wouldn't be because I forced myself to. It would be because I genuinely wanted to, and I think that's really important. Just don't force yourself to do something that you really don't feel like is right in your heart. Like, do it because you want to do it. Do it because it makes you happy. So
yeah. If anybody has questions, please type it in, and I'd be happy to call on you. Again, some of you know Izzy as a friend. Others maybe here, Izzy is a coach of yours from last summer. Izzy, someone like yourself, with although a limited coaching background, like, you still choose to do it. You don't. I wouldn't say that you do it for the money, because very few coaches out there really do it for the money. What is it that brings you? I mean, you say it's your relationships with Marine Hills and also perhaps with King also, but do you feel that it's giving back in some way, or is it just is it really just kind of maintaining contact with some people? Like, what is it that brings you back to King or Marine Hills, or just swimming in general in your free time?
So King, I think I gave so much of my time to King, and King gave so much of its resources to me when I was younger, and I think so much of my youth was involved with King. I think it would be foolish to not try and at least, give what I can back to them. And I wish that as an age group around King, I had more of a connection with those national swimmers, and I really wish that I had more of an ability to be coached by them and get their feedback. And the coaches were amazing, but I do wish that there was more of that mentorship. And I think for me, having an opportunity to give that to kids was really, really important. And I think on a little bit more of a maybe selfish note, coaching to me gave me a completely different perspective on my swimming career. So coaching during the summer and then going back to college swimming, I had a completely different outlook. It was a 180. So I think in that way, that is why I would continue to do it, is because my outlook on life changed.
Yeah. You don't necessarily know something until you can teach it. then I think the kind of cool thing about coaching is different personalities and getting people to learn something, achieve something, and God, it's just so gratifying when it does happen. It's a gift to coach, and again, it's not for everybody. It's hard, but you do have a lot of fun with it. And I think it's important that whatever it is that we do, that you have fun with it. The idea of you becoming forensic scientist in the future, and as a fan of Dexter, the show, like I can kind of see how that could be kind of interesting always. Not any one day is the same in coaching, and I imagine that would also kind of be the case in forensics if you do end up pursuing that path. I love to ask this question, and again, if you could go back and tell that 8-year-old Izzy or 10-year-old or 15-year-old self, something that you learned or something that you know today but you wish you knew back then, is there anything that you can kind of point to?
Well, first I'd like to start off with saying I don't regret anything that I did relating to swimming when I was younger, even though I went through a lot of hard stuff and difficult challenges. I don't regret any of the choices I made or things I did. I think I did everything to my best ability. However, I think one piece of advice I might give myself is to, and I know this sounds really weird, but stick with tennis. Like, have, and not in lieu of swimming, not in lieu of it, but alongside it. I think I made the decision to drop everything for only swimming a little bit too early, and I wish that I had maintained another active hobby alongside that. I think I really could have gotten more benefit from that type of cross training and a little bit of that mental break from swimming, and just a different type of activity. I think I let go of that too early. I got way too intense with just swimming, and that could apply for people who, maybe you want to do middle school track or want to do their dance team, or and I'm just bringing up Mary Vertitas. She had cross country. I think I really regret not sticking with another active activity for longer.
Yeah. In all these swimming books, Izzy, they talk about this window of opportunity, and for girls, they would say this window of opportunity is between the ages of 11 and 14. And what they say is, like, this is literally the window where you just swim a lot in the hopes that you're going to build this aerobic foundation so that you can build off of that. But the truth is, we've spoken to a bunch of Olympic athletes, and a lot of them are saying a lot of things that completely go against what conventional swimming has been saying, and they were doing other sports along the way. Olivia Samaliga, the U.S. Olympian, she was into Irish dancing, and she committed to swimming when she was like 14 or 15. Brent Hayden was in martial arts. There was another athlete, he was into kickboxing all up until he was 15 to 16. But this was in tandem with swimming, and they do attribute a lot of their success to doing those things. But at the same time, I have to roll this back and look at the reality of, these are a couple of people that did it and were able to still make it in swimming, whereas most other people don't. I do think that there is a lot of utility in cross training. I think that, I think kids should do a different sport, next to swimming. It's going to make you a better athlete. The better athlete you are, the better swimmer you're going to be. But again, I'm thinking, like, if you didn't keep swimming, Izzy, chances are you may not have gotten that aerobic capacity because of that work that you did between those ages. So I can very much respect that.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I could add to that would be, maybe don't underestimate the importance of nutrition early on. And I think especially right now, when we have a bunch of downtime, really hone in on that as a skill that you can translate into the next season. Oftentimes people don't utilize nutrition as much as they should, and I wish that I had really learned about it earlier on and utilized that.
You know, Joel Springer's on with us right now, and I think she said that she gained 20 or 25 pounds in her freshman year, and a lot of it was muscle. I'm hoping she'll tell her brother whatever it was that she was eating, just so that he gained some weight too.
That's a Dairy Queen.
Yeah, there it is. There they are. What is it that like nutrition has done for you, Izzy, and how has it changed your life? If you don't just say that kind of stuff. It had to be that obvious. Like, what is it about nutrition that really kind of you wish you knew?
I think that, as a kid, you rely a lot on your parents, feeding you meals, which I feel like for most people, they can relate to that. And so when I was younger, my parents would just, feed me before and after practices, pack lunches pretty early on. And then when you have to do that for yourself, you're like, oh my goodness, like, what am I supposed to fuel my body? Like, how should I be doing this? Like, is there a specific way to do this correctly? And I think you can overcomplicate it and you can undercomplicate it. But I think looking back, when I felt the best competing was when I really took advantage of nutrition. And I've worked with countless nutritionists in the past few years working on that. And it's a skill that I just wish I had learned a lot earlier.
No one had ever spoken to me until I was like 26 about it. So I get you. I wish I knew earlier. I mean, I learned 2 years before the end of my career that, that there was this thing called nutrition. And I spoke to a nutritionist only after back surgery when I had to change something big in my life. So everybody listening, do not wait until the last minute or when you're cornered to kind of learn something. Nutrition's it's a really, really big deal. Yeah. Hey, Sierra, you had a question. Izzy partially answered it, but please do ask it, and she can maybe elaborate.
Is there anything you wish you asked college coaches or learned about the teams before you committed to a school, like besides what you're talking about, the workout philosophy?
Yes. So I kind of sat down with Steve and asked a lot about what practices looked like, because for me, that was the most important. But obviously, they're going to make it look a little bit more appealing than it ends up being. I think, are they going to be flexible should that first season not be great for you? Like, are they going to be willing to change it up for you, or are they just going to stick to the way they know how to coach? I think that's really important. Are they, because you have 4 years with them, and it really is in their best interest to make sure that you are performing well. And I think one thing I wish I had asked was, hey, like, should this type of training not work out for me? Are we willing to sit down and make like a different plan? Or is that out of the question? I don't know if that answered your question, Sierra.
It did. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the reality is not many college coaches would make that would do that for their athletes, for a couple of reasons, but I think you have a total right to ask your coach why. What is it like? Help me understand your philosophy, and if you help me understand, it doesn't matter what it is I need to do. I'm going to do it because I'm gonna understand, right? Did you ever feel like you could go to him and talk to him about what it is that you've done so far and different options?
Oh yeah, multiple times. we've had that conversation, a sit down serious conversation about that probably 5 to 10 different times over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And we have changed up training. So
Good.
it's been a slow progression, but I think that it's important to know if you're consistent about it and if you're really asking them the right questions, that they are going to figure it out with you.
I think asking the right questions is right. And again, everything at the end of the day, if you believe it, I mean, if you truly believe in doing 25s every day, all day, then that's all you need. You know, I mean, my old club coach, Dave Salo, he said it doesn't matter what you do as long as you believe in it. And that's really, really important. You know, Izzy, we, you know, our doors are always going to be open to you. And when we do come out of this, if you want to train and it works out with that Marine Hills schedule, if that's what you're doing, you know, we're going to be there, hopefully. So, you know, you can go to from practice into teaching. And I think that's really, really cool. So, you know, Izzy, again, you know, you got fans at King. Come visit us as often as possible. And again, you know, just if you ever need help or a job, just let us know. You've
Okay,
always
thank you.
All right.
I think the only other thing I would add is on that adversity subject, I recently listened to a podcast. It's Victoria Garrick's podcast called Real Pod. She was a former USC volleyball player. She's a mental health advocate and TED speaker. And she has a partnership with Max Brown, who was the nation's #1 football recruit. He went to USC in Pittsburgh, and his college career did not go anything like he expected. He never ended up starting, and then he transferred to Pittsburgh and got a labral tear in his shoulder, and that was career ending. And he speaks kind of more on adversity and failure, and I think it's a really interesting podcast that everyone here should listen to. He says that, and I quote him on this, addressing failure is healthy. Failure is not something, failing at something does not make you a failure. It's important to address that. She also does a podcast with Paralympic gold medalist Mallory Wedgeman. So if you're more interested in the swimming perspective, that one's a good one to listen to as well.
No, what's definitely important is, you know, there's winning and there's learning. You only truly lose or you only truly fail if you learn nothing from it. I'm with that. If you would send me that, I would be happy to attach that podcast link to this YouTube link once it's posted. But it's important to realize that, you know, it's not the end of the world. You need to lose to win, or you need to fall so that you can get up. And again, I think that, you know, swimming, although it is a sport and all of us are swimming it and swimming every day, it's the lessons that you learn en route to achieving your goals that's actually going to stick, and that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. You know, you, Izzy, you're going to be more prepared for life because you've been forced to look at some truths and to reevaluate yourself. So, you know, you've got the right attitude. You know, with that story of training through your injuries, you're going to use that in your interview one day. You have to. You need to, right? So, I think that, you know, the personality, the drive, and again, just for you to sit back and to look at the big picture, like you mentioned, I think that no one's got to worry about Izzy Hackney. She's going to be just fine. All right. All right, guys.
Well, thank you, Milo, for having me. If anyone has any more questions that they want to ask me, Milo has my email, and I am open to anything you guys have about college questions or just life.
Sounds great. Okay. Thank you, Izzy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye.